What's up, friends? So glad that we are kicking off season 2 of Hot Thoughts. I am excited to be joined by 3 great humans and a beautiful looking dog. And so excited, though, to be diving into our second season. We just wrapped up maybe 2 months ago, kind of season 1, which was a really fun 11-week ride where we talked to some United Methodist bishops and we talked to people that planted churches and we talked to folks on kind of what racism and the gospel, how does that look? And so we've covered a wide gamut of conversations. And so we're excited now to kind of kick off this second season with a conversation with people that aren't pastors, that aren't leaders of the church, but are just members of their community, and talk about life and faith and spirituality and how that all matters, or if it matters, and kind of our perspectives on that. And so what we do every week is we kind of gather, is kind of wait to see people show up. And so as we kind of wait for people to kind of pour in, here's what we're going to do is just kind of check in and see how folks are doing. And so, David, Brader, what's going on in your life? What's new? I mean, COVID's been crazy, so what's been new for you over the last, several monns?
I have a 10-month-old who's starting to crawl and on the cusp of walking, and a pregnant bride who's due in December, and I am way too old to be having kids. I'm too irresponsible for God to have blessed me with that, but whatever, we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. The dog was enough, and now here comes.
Right, that's like back to back. Yeah, a 10-month walker. That's pretty good. You're going to have like a athlete there if they're already moving in 10 months.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. What about you, Jordan? What's life been for you like during? I mean, I know you work for a big corporation, and so what's it been like doing life and work and all that in the midst of all this?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Took a new job in the middle of COVID, so I have met one of my coworkers out of 12 or whatever. So working from home is weird. Wife has been either working not at all or working a crap ton. So it's been just weird making schedules work and just kind of figuring out life and trying to communicate through all of it.
Yeah. And Scott, I know right now, I mean, you're in the kind of Portland metro area, a little further out.
Sure.
But Oregon is on fire right now. So maybe I would ask you the COVID question, but what's it like right now in Oregon with all the forest fires and whatnot going on?
So it's been eerie. Honestly, it started a couple days ago, maybe 3 days ago. The weather started to really move in, and me and my roommate, my golf buddy, decided we'd go play golf in 25 mile-an-hour sustained winds and 50-mile-an-hour gusts as the storm that's caused all of this brewed. But since then, it's really turned into a statewide issue. And me personally, I've got a fire burning up the hill directly behind me about 4 miles away. We're luckily not in an evacuation zone. We're not even in a be prepared type zone currently, so that's good. But really, my heart is just breaking for some of the cities that have been razed completely.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cross shot right there. I mean, I didn't mean to hurt your monologue, but that was a great shot, Jordan. So, hey, well, we kind of got our critical mass across. So if you're watching on my page, or maybe you're watching on somewhere it's shared, or maybe you're in the Facebook group, if you hop over to the Hot Thoughts official kind of Facebook page, so not a group, but the page, it's the best place to comment. Your comments will show up in the stream. But please don't forget to like, comment, and share just so you can be a part of the discussion, and others that might benefit from it could be as well. And so with that, I know we had a chance just to kind of chat for a little bit, but why don't we just do some quick introductions? I know all of you, but not everyone watching knows all of you. I mean, Scott doesn't even have the Facebook, and so people across the globe have no chance to have met you. And so why don't we start with you, Brader, and do just quick introductions, and we'll go around and then we'll dive into our conversation for tonight.
David Brader, 42 years old, from Webster Groves, in commercial real estate full-time, and I coach kickers, punters, long snappers. So from the ages of about 7 years old all the way to guys in the NFL.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of what I do. Married with 1 kid and 1 on the way.
Yeah. Cool. Jordan, what about you?
Jordan Wish, 29. I live in Maplewood, Missouri. I'm a software engineer at Boeing. Been there for about 6 years, and just recently started a new role, as I mentioned earlier. Just enjoy doing life and playing with the dog. No kids yet. No kids planned yet. So enjoying minimal responsibility.
Yeah. All right, Scott, why don't you take us home? Wrap us up.
Scott Leibarger. I obviously share a last name with our illustrious host here. I am currently working for Bank of America out here in McMinnville, Oregon is where I work. I live in Newberg, Oregon as an assistant manager at a bank branch, but just kind of living life day at a time. And like I mentioned earlier, kind of trying to stay safe and stay sane in the midst of all these fires around us right now.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad that everyone had a chance to meet you. And so for the uninitiated, the way our show goes is we will dive through 5 wings and 5 progressively spicier sauces as we also go 5 progressively spicier questions. And so what we'll do before each question is introduce our sauce. And usually I would have everyone individually do it, but we all have the same one. So we have the first time it's being used. We have the hot sauce or the Thoughts sauce, which is by RFH Peppers here in Webster Groves. And this is a sauce made specifically for our show. And so that's pretty exciting to get to debut that. You can order it on their website, RFH Peppers on Facebook. But it's pretty fun to have one of our sauces. I'll love to hear what the 3 of you think as we dive into it. And so why don't we all take a bite of our wing, and then as y'all chew, I'll throw that question out there. And so let's dive into the Thought sauce, see if it evokes some thoughts, and then we'll dive into this question. And so as y'all take a bite, here is the question that we're going to just start off with. And again, our conversation tonight is just based on spirituality and kind of what it's like. But before we can kind of have those conversations, we want to talk about what is your current expression? What is your religious activity? Like, are you Christian, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic? Are you Catholic, Protestant? And so kind of what's your expression and what's your activity within that? And so, Brader, why don't you kick us off? Kind of what's your answer to question number 1?
So I would identify as Christian, but maybe a couple different ways. Maybe a post-Auschwitz Christian. Try not to carry the guilt with it, and recognize our role as Christians in society as a bigger picture. But also trying to, I don't go to church. I was single for a very long time, and I don't think the church is any place for a single male, especially. Since then, my wife and I had, not for any good reason, bad reason, we've discussed it, we've talked about it, but we just don't go to church. I would say we're both faithful. And have faith in Jesus, God, Christ, all that. I mean, like, we believe the narrative of Christianity. But I think we're both just kind of probably been burned by it a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the humans really screw everything up, as we can attest to forest fires in California. But
Right.
We get in the way of a lot of good things, and I think faith is one of those.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. Jordan, what about you? I know you, well, I won't tell your story, so kind of where are you kind of on this kind of spectrum?
Yeah, I'm a Christian. I don't really have a defined denomination that I belong to currently. I'm attending a church that describes itself as a closet Baptist church. So I am kind of learning what Baptist theology is, trying to figure out where my views are and where they align with this church and with the Bible in general, and how to interpret it. I've been kind of all over the place the last few years. Grew up Catholic, attended a Methodist church for 4 or 5 years, and been attending this Baptist church now for a little under a year. And I've always, even though I've been bouncing from church to church, church has been a very consistent part of my life and my wife's life. And we want to continue that to be the case, but where we end up, we don't know yet. Only God knows.
Yeah, cool. Scott, what about you?
So I wish I had a clean-cut answer for you. I fall somewhere in the realm, I would say, if I had to put a label on it, in deism or theism. In that I'm certainly not an atheist, as I know growing up you would like to joke with me about, but I'm not. I fully believe in and subscribe to the idea of a omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient creator. I think that as a man of science, we can dig into a lot of things and try and get a lot of answers. And I think the Big Bang Theory is the way the universe was created, but if we look at that action, we still need causation, and with no good answer, why not leave rooms for a deity of some sort? But long story short, a deistic, theistic, universalist, I would say, is probably the best way right now. But it's very much a moving target. It's very much fluid, and it's just something that I look at the life a person leads as of paramount importance to who I surround myself with. But again, I grew up Christian and have a lot of love and a lot of respect for the ideology and for the narrative and the theology and the dogmatic principles. But I just have a hard time buying into one particular thing when there's so many amazing people that subscribe to such a wide-ranging reach of beliefs and ideologies and spiritual systems.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would say what's awesome is you guys cover different geographic areas, different spiritual stories. But one thing you all have in common is I probably at one point or another tried to recruit you to start a church with me. So you guys all at least share that in common. So you guys all probably at least share that. So
question for Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan, one of my things with the Christian faith, and especially with a lot of, and Danny, this is for you too, planning churches I totally understand, and going from one plant to another plant I totally understand. But if we're supposed to be the bridegroom if the church is the bridegroom of Christ, and if we look at that in the idea and context of marriage, that the bride and groom, one of the biggest things that's turned me off about the Christian church is the bouncing around of parishioners or of members, or whatever word you want to use for that. When they don't like something the pastor said, they don't like something that's going on, and they immediately jump ship. And I was involved with 2 churches in Webster Groves that had planted from other churches that kind of had that experience where a lot of the congregation left because they were upset with the pastor wasn't responsive, whatever else. So Jordan, my question is, and again, not challenging, just for the question, what has been your reason that you've bounced around a little bit, and what is it that you're looking for? What do you think would make you feel at peace within a church or within a congregation that you would stay there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I had mentioned, I grew up Catholic, attended Catholic church through high school, most of college. But I also was a part of Young Life, and kind of understanding Young Life definitely led me to dive into the Bible more, try to get a more biblical understanding of who I thought Jesus was. And as I continued to learn and continued to grow in my faith, I felt that Catholicism didn't really line up with what I understood God to be, or Jesus to be. So as I was graduating college, I started attending the gathering. The gathering's a Methodist church, and met Danny there about a year or two later.
My preaching sent him away.
Exactly.
I preached, he left.
No. Actually, I left after you left our church, so it's not your fault.
I appreciate it.
as I was attending our church and the gathering, I really enjoyed the community. Community aspect was really great. I and my wife kind of pointed this out too, but we noticed that the church did not preach the gospel day in, day out. It was very rarely just broken down in simple, we are sinners, Christ died for us, now we may be redeemed. And that was hard. We didn't just pack up and leave. Like, we had a lot of conversations. I think Danny can attest. We had talked with Danny, talked with several people that worked at the gathering, pastors and the like, and just felt like, hey, we need to be somewhere that we feel agrees with us on these core beliefs. And so that was, I mean, we stayed for probably a year and a half of battling that before we moved on to our new church. And we're sticking it out with this one right now. It's, they have a very different mindset than the gathering. And so it's taken a big mental shift. But we're wrestling with it. We're not planning to just drop everything and go to the next church. But we're trying to push back. We're trying to learn and grow. And I think that's crucially important. Like you said, you shouldn't just be like, all right, this sermon sucked, let's get out of here. Lord knows I would have left way earlier with Danny's preaching.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's probably true.
No, I agree though that it's like, you should stick with it, and you should push back. You should investigate. And I mean, the Bible tells you that if you're hearing something that doesn't sound right, like, go into the scripture and investigate and see what it says, and don't just leave it. So, but that's a very good point, David.
And then just to clarify, you said you wanted it to be day in, day out. We're sinners, we sin, life sucks, or you were saying they didn't do that?
Maybe not day in, day out, but just a reminder of, that we need a savior. We need saving, and
not like the shame thing, but like the Jesus aspect.
Not like day 6 of Young Life camp.
Yeah. I had 20 some years of Catholic guilt, and and sometimes that was the guilt without the offer for salvation, and there needs to be both sides, right? And not trying to bash any specific church or anything, but I think that there needs to be a balance.
Well, we'll dive into. So I want to stop us real quick because I think we're actually going to unpack some of this a little more in detail in the next question. Like, kind of.
I just want to interrupt one more real quick. Hot sauce. Their thought sauce, fantastic, smoky and delicious.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that. Stephen Reed.
There's Stephen right there. Stephen, I Venmo'd you.
Yeah, so he created the thought sauce. What do you like? You four, what do you think? Or you three, what do you think?
It's great.
It's delicious.
Very good. A little bit of a bite, but a little bit of the sweet. Sure. And I think you're 60% heat, 40% sweet. I think it's pretty close.
All right.
I'm a little scared about 100% heat. That would.
Well, you will get there later, Jordan.
I know.
So why don't we? So I don't know what y'all have for your sauces. So my second one is the Dingo Widowmaker. So I'm actually jumping up pretty quick. So this is 650,000 Scovilles right off the bat. So I'm going to get going. So what do you have, David?
I don't know. Tapetos or.
Oh yeah, Tapatio, man. That's the one.
This is like the entry into. This is like VBS or something.
Jordan, what do you have?
I have Lola's original hot sauce.
I love Lola's.
It does not have any Scovilles on it, so I'm going to go with 11.
Hey, thanks for the hoodie shout out. And I saw Wesley. Wes. Sorry, bud. So you can. I'll shoot you the link. I'll text you after the show. I've got your number. And then Scott, what are you rocking?
I've got the first of 3 Torchbearer sauces. It's the all-natural Son of Zombie. I think it's pushing somewhere around 50 to 70,000, and it's going to ramp up pretty substantially from there.
That's pretty hot. So I'm going to ask this question where I can still get it out. I shouldn't have taken a bite before I asked the question. So how did you find yourself where you are? I know, Scott, kind of you have your spiritual journey that got, I know yours because you're my brother, obviously, but David, Jordan, you guys have situations that kind of landed you where you were. And so, David, kind of in short, to maybe unpack what you just said, what led you to kind of your spiritual position where you find yourself right now?
I think being single as long as I was, kind of being turned off from the church, turned off from leaders in the church. That was really kind of the big thing. I became a Christian through Young Life. I shouldn't even say that. I was raised a Christian, but it became more real to me through Young Life, similar to Jordan's experience, where you get to go to. It was just different, but I felt like at a young age, it was not. It was almost thrown on you, to the point that I came back and led Young Life as a 19-year-old at Ladue High School, and I was in no position, one, to be a leader of any kind, a spiritual leader for sure, and I just don't even think I understood my own faith really. And then growing through that, seeing just life. There are a lot of kids that I've been able to coach who come from a lot of different backgrounds. And who am I to say that they're right or wrong, or that I'm right or wrong because of what they believe or don't believe? And similar to what Scott said, I mean, I'm gonna judge you by your character more than I'm gonna judge you by what you believe or how you believe it. And I think that ultimately, hearing pastors have conversations that were, in my opinion, less than godly, about other people or about situations, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I get that you're human. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to do this, but it's all about grace. And to Jordan's point about you got to recognize that you sin and that you're not perfect. There's a sonship, and if anybody out there has gone through sonship or done that, the basis of it, and I use this with the kids that I led Young Life with. Pretty much, I kind of dumbed it down a little bit, but it's know that you suck, and know that you need something more than just you in life. And whether that's the community you surround yourself with, whether that's your faith, whether it's anything else. And when I go out and I coach, I'm not going to be perfect for any of these kids. And I don't want to have that Christian mentality that I'm not good enough to be around these kids that I coach or whatever else. But when character ideally rises above it, and there are a lot of people that say I'm an idiot anyhow, but that's what it is more to me than anything else. And I don't think I need a church to define me. I think I need Jesus to define me personally. I think I need that, but I might be wrong about that. So I mean, how do I know? Elvis wore a Star of David and a cross because he didn't want to go to hell in a technicality. So I don't know.
Well, hey, David, just real quick, I'll say Kelly threw out, just so you like some phonetics for you. Ta patio. There you go. So you know what your sauce was. But I think it's great. I appreciate that answer, though. I think, and I won't riff a ton on this, but I think you do pose a good point that I hope maybe we can unpack later is maybe it's not the church as Christ intended it that's the issue, but you said this even earlier, David, like the church as humans, and maybe we said this before we went live, but church as kind of humans that have messed it up might be the problem. Like if as someone like that, at least most of us would subscribe like Jesus is an important person. Maybe Jesus isn't the issue. Maybe the humans that are driving the ship have become the issue, right? So, but Jordan, I know you're kind of like a not defected Catholic, but you're a former Catholic, now Protestant. Like, how did you find yourself in that position? Like, why are you? And you could go as far as why are you at a Baptist church now, but like I think to switch even from Catholic to Protestant is a pretty big deal, and to stay a part of the faith. And so, how did you kind of end up where you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of credit that has to be given to my older brother because he kind of blazed the path of leaving the Catholic Church and having those conversations with my parents before I did, because I do not like disappointing people. And so I think for a while I was attending Catholic church just to make my parents happy and to that's just what I knew, and sticking with the routine. But as I mentioned, as I kind of got older and kind of grew in my faith, I just felt like I wasn't really seeing what I thought should be seen, or just really agreeing with what Catholicism stood for. And God dropped Dave Merrill in my lap and offered me tickets to a ball game to come hang out with other college-age Christians, and that kind of led me to the gathering, and then meeting my wife, and then through just more growth, leading me out of the gathering and now to mid-cities. But I think it's just been a lot of just some of it's maybe providence, some of it's just praying and diving into scripture and seeing, hey, what's going on here? Why do we believe this? Why do we practice this? Where do we reference the Bible in this? How does this point to Jesus? What does this say about Jesus? I think those are all really important questions that that as you continue to look into things, you'll kind of see, hey, this aligns with how I understand, how I interpret the Bible. And it's never going to be perfect. I'm never going to have a completely clear picture of who God is here on earth, because I'm human and sinful and stupid, relatively speaking. So I think it's just humbly just trying to learn and trying to trust in God to just point you in the right direction.
Well, I love that one of the things you said, just before we go to Scott, is kind of the idea that it's you're helping drive it. Not that if Christ is sufficient, right, which you would believe as a Christian, but you also have to think. It's not I read it, we believe it, that settles it, right? You're I'm going to do some exploration for myself, and I think that's awesome. And if you ever feel stupid, Jordan, try growing up with a certified Minson and a genius as your twin brother. And so, Scott, why don't you tell us what you think, man?
Thanks for that. So first, before I dive into my thoughts on and how I ended up where I am, I just want to say that I firstly appreciate the other two gentlemen that I'm on here with. Danny, I appreciate you, but fellas, I think there's a lot of if there's one qualm that I had with Christianity growing up, and it's the absolutism and the thought that everything, and that anything else is wrong, and I sense a lot of humility and willingness to learn and acceptance of being wrong and not having all the answers, and I think that's super important. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for that. But I can trace I would say the fork in the road in my journey back to a pretty singular experience. I was sitting in my Intro to Old Testament class at George Fox University with Howard Macy teaching it, and we were going over the what's referred to in my experience as the creation myth in Christianity. And one of the things that stood out as really stark to me was that it's borrowed a lot of it. If you do the exegesis, if you dig into the linguistic origins of it, a good chunk of it, if I'm recalling correctly, is borrowed from a Babylonian creation myth, and it kind of led me to think well, damn, there's a lot out there that I don't know, and I've kind of, growing up in a conservative small town, been spoon-fed my entire life that this is the end-all be-all. This is it. If you don't believe in this, you're wrong. And the fact that the beliefs are shared, I won't say disqualified Christianity as a way to salvation, but I think it opened up the possibility of several other paths of salvation. I mean, spirituality and religion have been a part of the human experience since the human experience existed. If you look at Sumerians and Akkadians and Babylonians, I mean, you're going back into polytheism, right? And Egyptians and the like. But the quest for knowing the unknowable has always been integral to the human experience. And I think that is manifested in religion a lot, before we had the scientific means and methods that we have now, but still religion endures, because as a man of science, I know that I've alluded to the Big Bang before, and the more we think we know, the more questions we uncover. So I think that religious ideology is important, because it helps people strive to be a better person. It helps people strive to subscribe to, whether it's a set of laws or rules or beliefs, to make you a better person. I think it's super important for the human experience to exercise that higher level of cognition, but and spirituality. But again, for me, it's just really difficult to pin myself to one story. And I understand that grace separates Christianity from any other religion and ideology, but it's just really difficult for me to say that somebody who exercises some belief system, and I know the rocks will cry out, but they may never have practical exposure to a missionary or someone who is speaking the clear-cut word of Christ and the clear-cut word of the gospel. And I have a really hard time believing that person doesn't get to experience eternal salvation and bliss, if such a thing exists, which I believe that it does. But long story short, in summation, again, I appreciate the beliefs of all. I don't think that any one belief is more righteous than the other, but it's hard for me to subscribe to any one thing when there's so much out there. And I've met so many good people from so many different walks of life and walks of faith and walks of spirituality. And that's why I have just kind of, I wouldn't even say allowed or forced. I've just, I've had myself stay open and remain open to any ideology I come across. And it's become sort of a piecemeal patchwork quilt, if you will, of different ideologies that make up who I am as a person. And I mean, if there's one thing I could point to in Christianity that's the most important thing that I ever experienced that has still colored my spirituality and my journey of faith to this day, is James. Faith without works is dead, to encapsulate it simply. And I think that's something that's sometimes lost in the modern church. And it's something that I really respect about Judaism. My girlfriend is a Jew. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Judaism is the emphasis on works and the emphasis on striving to be the best person that you can. So I'm not going to monologue too much longer, but that's sort of how I came to arrive where I am, which is frankly not knowing where the hell I am.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Scott, this is actually an intervention. So do you have a second to talk about your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
I was waiting for you to bust out into the opening number from the Book of Mormon. Hello, my name is Elder Price.
That's really funny. That was, I'll tell you, that was option 2 on the jokes that I was going to make. But I didn't know how to make the ding-dong sound without sounding weird and people not getting the joke. So with that, Elder Price, why don't we go on to the next sauce? And so I've got the Fiery Fool. So this is the hottest pepper sauce, or hottest sauce you can get without extracts in it. So that means natural sauce. So maybe a bad decision for number 3. But 4 and 5 aren't much better. So, David, what do you got?
Just real simple. My palate.
Oh, that's a good one.
My palate's sensitive.
That is delicious.
Yeah, what do you got, Jordan?
I have Buenos Nachos from Rising Smoke in North Carolina.
Okay. All right. Scott, what do you got?
I'm stepping it up to the zombie apocalypse. I went from the Son of Zombie to that. It claims to be in the between 250 to 500,000 Scoville range. Mostly ghost peppers. Here goes nothing.
Here goes nothing. Well, why don't we all take a bite? And here's what we'll do on this one, is actually to throw Scott off his game and give Brader a break. Scott, you're going to answer this question first. And so why do you or don't you think that faith in any religion, so get outside the realm of Christianity, but why do you or don't you think faith is important? And if you want to speak to a specific one, you can, but start general and then kind of hone in on your own kind of stuff. So, Scott, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit ago. Wow, that's hotter than I remember. Touched on it a minute ago here. I think that anything that makes people earnestly behave in a better way to benefit humanity is important. And I think if that's faith, if that's what that looks like for you or for any human being, then I think that's super important. I mean, we all just have, one go at this for sure on this rock. And if whatever faith you subscribe to, excuse me, holy cannoli, if whatever faith you subscribe to causes you to be a better person, I'm all for it. I mean, shout out to you and my mom, Barbara. She's a therapist, and through her, I've kind of gotten into some therapy stuff and some psychology. And one of the other things that I subscribe to personally is existentialism. And the way that looks is that I'll never fully authentically know what any of y'all are thinking. I'll only fully authentically know what I'm thinking. And that can go one of two ways. You get your Nietzschean existentialists who think that's all entropy. It's all nothingness. I'll never know what anybody's thinking. What's the point? Or my boy Soren Kierkegaard, who I believe was a Christian, viewed it as, I may only authentically ever know myself, but so what? That means I can impact everyone else that I come into contact with. I can impact their experience and their unique human existence in as great a way as I can, and try and help them live the best life and be the best person they can. I may never fully know what they're thinking, but why the hell should that matter? So whether it's a faith in a thinker, a philosopher, or whether it's a faith in a religion or a spiritual ideology, I think faith is super important, because I think faith is unique to and endemic of the human experience. I think that it's something that separates us from the rest of the beings that inhabit this planet, that we do experience a counterpoint with the divine, whether that divine is an interest in science, or an interest in trying to understand how the mind works, or understand the great philosophic questions. I think that striving for the comprehension of greater ideas and ideas that are greater than ourselves leads to good things, and leads to, for lack of better phrasing, good behavior, and the creation of good citizens. So that's why I do think faith is of paramount importance, of all us, maybe being a little nicer from time to time.
Yeah, no, it's good. And so before you go, Jordan, and then we'll wrap up with you, Brader, but if you have questions, by the way, so one of my favorite parts of the show is audience-generated questions. So there's a question you can ask me, you can ask Brader, Jordan, Scott. You want to know about more existentialism, you want to know about being a former Catholic, you want to know about being someone that's a Christian and not in the church, or a part of a specific church. Any questions, I mean, they're all fair game. And so drop them in the comments. I'll be able to look at those as these fellows are answering. And so we can kind of go into that. And so, but for you, Jordan, kind of why do or don't you think faith is important as we kind of keep this one going?
Yeah, I think faith is greatly important. I think regardless of what faith you have, I think faith gives you direction. I think it gives you identity. It gives you purpose. It gives you comfort. It gives you just assurance. And all the things that Scott said, I think are completely true. And I think, I mean, man, when you go outside and there's just like the most amazing sunset or sunrise, like, when you look up at stars, like, kind of having a faith of like, yeah, there's a creator, like someone created this massive, massive world, and then also spent that much time creating the world as he did creating me. I think it makes you feel known and makes you feel loved. And I think that, as a Christian, I think that that's vitally important, but I feel like even as just a regular human being, that's vitally important.
Yeah. What about you, Brader? You want to wrap us up on kind of why you do or don't think it's important?
I 100% believe that it's important. And what that is to everybody else, that's their faith is what's going to get them through death of a family member. It's what's going to get them through COVID. Right. It's what's going to get them through financial hardship. It's what's going to get them through those times, whatever they feel their faith is, or that's where they see their faith. Jordan, one of the coolest things to me of all time is walking outside in Buena Vista, Colorado, and looking at the sunset over Mount Princeton. To me, that is my peace on earth. To Scott's point, maybe that Big Bang that started that, and now we've got a wildfire, and we've got changing colors because of smoke and man-made different things that are causing that. Whether it's a Big Bang and that's what you're hanging your hat on, or whether it's 7 days to create that's what you're, or 6 days to create and on the seventh rested, that's what you're hanging your hat on. As long as I think that as long as you find something that you're believing in, I think that's important. And then at least smart enough and wise enough to not think that somebody else's opinion of that is wrong and invalid because yours is different. And that's where you can have the faith, and I think it's super important. But when your faith is what somebody else is wrong, and again, I'm going back to that post-Auschwitz Christian, post-Auschwitz Catholic. But you go to the idea that there were millions of people killed because their faith was different. And to me, I can't get behind it. I've never been able to get behind it. And to me, it's one of those things. If we're going to have faith, there's got to be a real reason for it. But it's got to be open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just jump in really quick.
Go ahead.
Just to that point, the whole decimation of the Jewish population obviously hit super close to home to me. So I'm glad you brought that up. And like I said, my girlfriend is Jewish, and it's just one thing I've never fully understood is why people spew such vitriol and such hatred towards someone who just believes differently than they do. And again, that's why I just want to double down in the fact that I appreciate everybody's openness to all beliefs here. That it's fantastic, and it's a breath of fresh air.
Well, I think the other thing that with and I don't know if it's from the humans that have done this, but fear drives a lot of that faith, and fear scares a lot of people, obviously, and fear steers people in ways. And I think if you can sell that, then you're going to make everybody else terrified of whatever it is. And I think that was a prime example. But I think that's where the conversation is never open with it from that standpoint. So I kind of going off on a tangent, but that to me is one of those things that I think fear is almost what has caused some of those other issues in the history of humanity.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I appreciate all you guys had to say on that. Like from across the spectrum, each of you kind of had a lot of similarities, but maybe some unique stuff. And so, it doesn't always happen. We don't always get asked the audience questions. And so, but while we do, even if we don't, we're going to do our fourth wing, our fourth sauce. And so, and that would give people time to drop a question. But this could be one question could be, Scott, why are you so awesome? One could be Brader. What is your bicep routine? One could be Jordan. What's it like working at Boeing? I mean, anyone could ask a question. But let's do the sauce. So I've got the last dab. And so.
Oh, you're insane.
So about 2 million Scovilles. What do you got, Brader?
I have Marie Sharp's orange pulp habanero pepper sauce. All it says is.
I think it's going to be great.
I think it's going to be really good. I'm going to put it in my Bloody Mary in the morning.
Jordan, what do you got?
I have Aka Miso Ghost Reaper from Bravado Spice Company.
Yeah. All right. And
got
from Danny's
5 fires. And from Danny's fridge. Thanks for that.
I had an extra, so I was happy to give it away. And Scott, what do you got?
Well, I'm envious of the Akaniso, but I've got the Garlic Reaper Torchbearer. I believe it clocked somewhere in the 500,000 Scoville range. It's going to be no fun.
All right, so we're gonna take a bite, and so looks like I got 2 questions, and so I'm gonna bite with you, and then we're gonna go from there. So, oh man, Scott got raptured. They got straight Kirk Cameron.
I just wanted a cold drink.
So that's funny. Does everyone that's married here have a black wedding band? Do we all have a black wedding band here, the married folks?
Mine is a charcoal gray. So light black.
That was very. I don't know who put that question up, but that was very observant. So the next one is Scott. Why are you so awesome? Do you have a short answer? Why are you so awesome?
I'm assuming Mark's our test is my boy Alex because he's a bit of a Marxist, but I'm awesome because of the people that I grew up around that helped me kind of self-actualize and become the best version of myself, really. I mean, I don't take any credit for the person that I become aside from some of the work that I put in to do it, but by and large, I'm the product of the community that I was raised within, and I'm thankful for everybody that's come across my path and done everything they can to help make me a better person. So
I love that. So I think this question's for me, but I'm going to let all of you answer it because you guys are all faith leaders as well, because you're here and you're being a part of the conversation. But why do faith leaders often endorse leaders that do not practice or follow basic principles of human decency? And so, I mean, you could make a comment about certain folks out in whatever part of the country that are vehemently against racial justice or against kind of well, this is more my bias, but kind of like full LGBTQ inclusion or whatever, right? Like human decency type thing. So, and I think it's really interesting. Like from my perspective, and I'll let everyone else answer this too, but I think from a faith leader's perspective, you get in the business of trying to care more about your brand, or another way to say it is your kingdom, rather than Jesus's kingdom. And if we're about like just spreading hope and love in the gospel, like it's got to be about God's kingdom, which Jesus talked about far more than any other. Like he didn't even talk about his kingdom. He talked about his Father's kingdom, right? And so it's got to be about God's kingdom, not our kingdom. But I would say that's why faith leaders often do that. You endorse people that give you cred, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's a bummer. But from your perspective, and again, like, what do you guys think about that? Like, why do you think faith leaders do that?
I'll go. I think it comes down to money. The fact that they're, I mean, it kind of goes with what you're saying, Danny, but if you know that your flock is going to follow your lead, and if you say something that they disagree with, you're not getting your tithe for that month or that year, or that you're not meeting those numbers, and you're out of a job. Guess what? You're gonna change your tune a little bit, and money drives society. It's one of the pillars that makes that. Unfortunately, it's the truth, and I think that is where I think that leads to a lot of problems. When you find somebody who is real in their faith, and I have met more people who I would consider spiritual mentors to me, not necessarily leaders, spiritual mentors that were not involved with the church because they didn't have that need. And you'd see this with Annie, I'm sure, but there are certain coaches who are really good at what they do. There are coaches who are awesome, amazing coaches. They'll never get their due appreciation. They'll never get any of that because they're not doing it for money. And you have other people who are terrible coaches who people follow because they have social media, because they have all that other stuff, and they're doing it all for the money. And that's all that it boils down to. And I think the same thing. I don't think that
Or the notoriety, right? The
yeah,
fame of it.
which is the same. Yeah. So that's my personal answer.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's good.
Raider, kind of tying into something that you said earlier. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, you go, Scott, and then Jordan, why don't you, if you have a thought on this, we'll let you wrap this up.
Yeah, I mean, tying into something you said earlier as far as like persecution of people, I think a lot of it is fear-based, and I think that ties into the monetary aspect of it, is that there's fear of alternative lifestyles. I think that's a thing that's very, very real. It's different, so I don't like it. I don't get it, so I don't like it. But also, even if at a cerebral level, the folks that are in power, the powers that be, have no fundamental problem with it, I think you're absolutely on point. That I think there's a lot of fear that their constituency will not give the monetary support that's required to continue to propagate the views that they have and to continue to do what they do. So I think it's kind of a convalescence of both, and not only desire for money and desire for power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, but desire for influence as well. But I think it's fear of loss of that, and also fear of change and fear of newness.
Yeah. What about you, Jordan? What do you think?
I agree with both points. I think one thing that I've seen a lot is seeing people who define their faith by their political beliefs instead of the other way around. And so I think it's easy to get on board with someone, and then if you do not have, a strong set of principles, if they're saying the things you want to hear, then you're going to start aligning with them more. And I think I think it's a shame, and I think it's frustrating. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of fear, a lot of just sticking with what you know, or
tribalism, right?
Yeah, tribalism, and maybe I think there's a lot of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like bargaining or over compromise, maybe. Like, hey, he's all like, this politician's already made it this far, like we can't change course now, or you just become further entrenched in candidates or in ideologies, and people don't want to be proven wrong. So I think humanity is stubborn and arrogant, and you see that play out throughout history with any sort of group. It's going to happen.
We want to be right more than we want to be good sometimes, right? Like we strive to be,
and that's not new. Yeah, that's not new by any stretch of imagination. The power. Right,
go ahead, David.
You want to be accepted. Forget being right. You want to be accepted. So if your narrative is wrong, you're changing that.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, kind of a herd mentality as far as a species. So you want to fit in with the herd.
Yeah, if you can't beat them, join them.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we're done with this. Before we're done, I have a question for Danny and Scott, and it could be after this next question. But before we're done, I have a question about your mom being a therapist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in the Ask the Audience question section.
Then I'm going to be part of the audience. So
throw it out.
My first question is, what kind of therapist is your mom?
She's a sex therapist? No, she's a no, I'm just kidding. She's a Scott, what is she? She works in prison.
So she I actually have a pretty good view into my mother's view on therapy and what works and what doesn't, but because I read some stuff and helped her bounce some ideas off of me when she was in her master's program. But she currently works for the Washington County Sheriff's Department as a therapist for the inmates there, helping to kind of work through what behaviors brought them to where they are and help them develop strategies to avoid recidivism. Is that the right pronunciation of that word? Avoid coming back to prison, basically. David. I'm so sorry. To avoid coming back to prison. So, but I also know that she. So her and I are very much in line in that we are sort of both existentialists, but it's kind of hard to get your head wrapped around that. So she she focuses more on CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and she helps people kind of figure out ways to strategize to overcome the things that have been detrimental to their lives and have landed them in prison. So she works very much in a public health space and in a space of edifying the prison population or the jail population that she serves.
Okay. Is that what she was doing when you guys were?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, so she got like her bachelor's degree like the year before after I did, and then her master's degree just in that same time, and then like went into therapy not long after that. So
super
in
proud
her
of
late
her.
50s. Yeah, like she's been knocking it out, and so she's crushing it. Yeah, but late career move. So
you guys weren't raised with her kind of
absolutely
questioning everything you were doing and over the top of that.
Well, we didn't say that, David.
Well, no, I mean to be fair, to be completely honest, we kind of lived in a household that was very, very Christian and very spiritual and very religious growing up, but also was not that in such a way that it was like rigorous and you had to do things that you were punished. I mean, I know I was never grounded. I experimented with things in my youth and was never chastised or punished for it. So like we live in a very accepting, just kind of loving household. And it really, I think it fostered the person or the people that Danny and I have become that are, staunch in our beliefs and we believe what we believe in, but we're also very, very much open-minded, and very, very much loving and accepting of everybody that we come across, and really never err on the side of being punitive or being closed-minded or being judgmental of anybody. I mean, our family bucked the trend of the church as much as any. We were always kind of the outliers wherever that we set our feet. So, but as far as like being counseled growing up and being in therapy sessions growing up, that never happened.
The only reason I ask is because of the difference in how you guys and your paths that you guys took. That if that was something that was, whether it was rebellion because you saw a little bit more, or there was a different mindset that was it.
Well, the problem was, David, is that my parents let Scott listen to AC/DC, and then once Scott listened to AC/DC, he fell off the deep end. It was
actually the Dave Matthews Band, but what do you do?
You're a big DMB fan. All right. Well, hey, that is an interesting question because
it's a great question.
Like her. I think that was one of the reasons I wanted Scott to be honest. Like, we're twins, obviously. So for anyone that doesn't know, we're not just siblings, but we're twins. But we have like very divergent paths in a lot of ways, and also similar paths in a lot of ways.
We're like 2.5 twins, and I took the other half because of my size. So
yeah, you ate all the groceries in the womb. So
apparently your brain.
Yeah. So our final question, but before we get to that, our last sauce. So let's get into this. So I've got. My wife just texted me. She said, "Why did you say?" She said, "Why did you say AC/DC when Brader has a Grateful Dead shirt on?" I totally blew it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
So yeah, I got the Constrictor. I think Scott's got the Constrictor. Oh no, Scott's got the Last Dab.
I've got the Last Dab. I couldn't do them both. They're both a nightmare.
Oh yeah, that's a hot one, David. That's gonna be brutal.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, it is.
What do you got, Jordan?
I have Trader Joe's habanero hot sauce.
All right.
That's a really delicious hot sauce, actually.
Before we take a bite of this, were there any nerves that I was going to call you like a different name on this show? Did you have any nerves?
I'm not supposed to curse on here, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
All right, great. Well, while you do that, in Brader, we'll go back to start you with this one. What would you say someone Oh, I got a little lick of the sauce. What would you say to someone looking to explore faith, spirituality, religion? So, when it could be an encouragement, or it could be an encouragement, or it could not be an encouragement. So, what would you say to someone exploring faith, spirituality, religion? Brader, we'll start with you.
So, if I didn't say this earlier, I led Young Life for about 7 years. And one of the things that we did within Young Life was ideally you go and try different churches and you see what you fit in. I would say that with every faith in general. Experience it, figure out what you're, whether it's faith, spirituality, or religion. But I don't think you have to be so closed-minded that you can't experience it. We go to different restaurants, we have different foods, we do that kind of stuff. We're open to that. Why not be open to a different genre of a book and maybe a different view of faith? And it's not going to kill you to go look at something and to go sit in a temple and hear something, to go I have such a hard time with all of this, and because of that, because we've put everything in a box that you can't go experience other things, and even to the there were a few friends of mine who married interfaith, and it was a big deal to a lot of friends. They wouldn't go to the weddings, they wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that, because it was a Hindu wedding and a Christian wedding, and it was blended. And give me a break. Who cares? At the end of the day,
Right.
I mean, let that be. You're not answering any question for that person at the end of their life. Let them answer theirs. Let you answer yours. So I would say experience it, figure it out. One really quick story that I'm gonna go on a huge tangent, but my uncle had a friend of his at 19 years old. The guy converted to Judaism. Couldn't figure out why. It just felt right. Felt natural. He had been adopted. After he was 25 years old and he found his birth parents. His birth parents were Jewish. And he naturally went to Judaism on his own. And this is up in New York in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And it was, I heard that story. I don't know who this gentleman is, but I heard that story. And I was like, that's pretty impressive that this guy was raised as a Christian in an adopted family, went away to college, knew that there was something different, fell into Judaism, and that's what he went with, and that's what he owned the rest of his life. And he came back to school or from school and was a Jew. And not only was he in faith of Jew, but he actually found out that 5 years later that he was actually Jewish. And he had been living the life that he thought he was supposed to live. Clearly it wasn't what innately he wanted to do or innately what he was or who he was. And I just think at the end of the day, if you're sitting there and you're baptizing somebody, that kid doesn't know how he's being baptized at 2 years old, 3 years old, 1 year, doesn't. And for the parents, there's faith in that and it's comfort. But for that kid, who knows what that kid's going to want to be? They might love AC/DC, and that's all they're going to do. But maybe
or the Grateful Dead.
Maybe it's St. Matthew's Band. But I just think it's really tough to limit yourself to just say you have to be. Experience it. And of all the things that you're going to experience, faith, spirituality, and religion are probably the things that are the safest for you.
Yeah.
Or study it. Don't just study it. Understand it. And be accepting of people who aren't or are.
Yeah. Open your minds, right? Expand your knowledge, right? That's great. What about you, Jordan?
Ooh. Yeah, I would echo that. I would say, just go in with an open mind, go in with an open heart. I think faith has the ability to change your life. Obviously as a Christian, I believe faith in Jesus can change your life, but any any religion will have an impact on you if you give it a try. So I would say just, check it out, be open, don't just, and I would say like what David was saying about studying it, don't put yourself in a corner, don't put yourself in a box and just do it on your own. Go out and meet with people who belong to that faith or belong to that religion and ask them questions and get a community of like-minded believers and be open and transparent. If there's something you're struggling with, the worst thing you can do is stay quiet about it. I think it is hugely important to tell your community what's going on in your head and where you're clicking and where you're struggling. And if the community is not receptive to that, then that's a sign on the community and not a sign on you.
Yeah, great. Well, hey, we're out of time. So no, I'm just kidding. Scott, your turn. Go ahead.
I mean, I've waxed philosophic plenty, but I don't know. I would say spirituality and religion, like I said earlier, are very, very important to the human experience. Whether that spirituality looks like a spiritual connection to science and a devoted, singular-minded connection to science and figuring out and trying to know the unknowable in that realm, or whether it's searching to know the unknowable in the religious realm and trying to answer the great questions of our time, or whether it's searching to know the unknowable in the mathematical realm or in the philosophical realm or in the realm of mental health. I mean, I think that spirituality and religion is such a broad term, and I think that it can be applied to any endeavor to learn more about things that you don't know. So I would say that no matter who you are, no matter what you subscribe to spiritually or religiously, I would say if you find something you're passionate about, if you find something you care an awful lot about, whether it's religion, whether it's anything, explore it, learn it, teach it, do everything you can to learn everything you can about it. But as far as just actual, trying to dive into a spirituality, I think that it is important. I think the most important thing is to echo sort of what my peers here have said is find folks that are like-minded, find folks that are open-minded, find folks that are willing to have an open dialogue and willing to explore doubt and explore explore all the avenues in which spirituality and religion expresses itself. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I would say it's a great thing to explore, and anything that you can do to make yourself a better person is a great thing. And I just would say, above all else, be inquisitive, explore the world around you, endeavor to learn as much as you can about the world around you, and but also don't remain stagnant in what you believe. Don't remain stagnant in what you think is true. Always allow yourself to be open to new perspectives and new thoughts, and just always do your best to edify and be the best or better version of yourself. And again, I just to wrap up before I kick it back to you, Danny, I just want to say, Dave and Jordan, thank you guys so much for being really everything that's right in the Christian world, and everything that's right with open-mindedness and not. I mean, I'll be honest. I was experiencing a little bit of anxiety being the only person on this panel that's not a person of faith of Christianity, and I never felt attacked. I never felt anything less than absolutely welcome, and it means a lot, and it shows me that there is a lot more right with Christianity and with the Christian church, or I mean, not necessarily the church, but with Christianity and people of faith. Than is often spoken of by certain parts of the country and certain ideologies. And I just thank you guys for being welcoming and open.
Yeah. Well, we got some shout outs for you guys. Great diverse panel. I think folks really enjoyed and loved your engagement, your questions tonight. And so I appreciate all of you and just your willingness to come on and chat and talk about this. And I mean, all three of you know this. I have very specific thoughts of my faith and my spirituality, but my biggest hope for this platform is it's not necessarily Danny's preaching time, but just a chance to get other people to have that conversation. So with that, like, I don't need to monologue to end us or kind of do that, but just another shout out from Kelly. Kind of proud of each of you. Feel the honesty and vulnerability of your hearts, and nice job. And so with that, I just want to thank each of you for joining us and being a part of this. For those watching, excited to kick off season 2. If you want, I mean, you can go order the thought sauce. And so, yeah, I mean, you three, I mean, would you guys give it a resounding 10 out of 10? I mean, did you like it?
It was really good.
Fantastic. Smoky, sweet, spicy, delicious.
Yeah, I love it. Well, make sure you go and search for, oh man, I just turned Siri on. Oh, that's weird. Go search for one of those things in your on RFH Peppers, or you can find it on the Hot Thoughts page or group. But we would love you just to do that. But I thank you guys for being on with us. We're going to sign off and just see you back next week. We're going to dive into, I think, the Enneagram next week. And so join us for that as we talk about a little bit of what the Enneagram has to say about spirituality. But Brader, Jordan, Scott, thank you for joining us. All that watched, we'll see you guys back here again next week.
Thank you, guys.